Hello, and welcome to the fourth episode of the MIT iGEM podcast. My name is Matt Fain, and I'll be your host for today's show. Today, we have three very special guests, the MIT iGEM team. We'll be discussing why they decided to join iGEM and their experience being on the team. So let's start off with some intros. Could you tell us your name and your major?
Hi, I'm Allison, and I am an electrical engineering and computer science major.
Hi, I'm Jeannie, and I'm majoring in bioengineering.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm also majoring in bioengineering.
Great. So let's just jump right in. How did you first get excited about scientific research?
Are we going down the line? Okay, so I was always really interested in biology because I was interested in medicine as a kid, and then I went to a talk about CRISPR-Cas9, which was given by Jennifer Doudna, and I thought that biological research could unlock so many different possibilities for the benefit of human health, and that's when I started getting really interested in research.
Great.
Yeah, for me, it's actually pretty funny. My first time getting excited about scientific research was also about CRISPR-Cas9, and I was in the car listening to NPR one day when they had this breaking news about a situation with CRISPR-Cas9, and I was really intrigued to learn what this crazy new technology was, and it was just incredibly fascinating, the different advancements that were happening in the biological and technological spheres. So that made me really curious to continue looking into that and seeing how my skills or my existence could play into that.
I think for me, the most memorable moment when I realized that I really like science was when my mom got me The Double Helix, which is a book that is pretty infamous for being pretty flawed in a lot of ways, but it also portrayed science and specifically the discovery of DNA structure as kind of like a mystery and a race to figure out how science and how nature works. And I thought that was really intriguing and definitely made me want to go along that kind of journey myself as well.
Nice. Yeah. So everyone has got started through some sort of biological. Okay. So then, how did you hear about iGEM?
Dorm spam.
Yeah, and if y'all don't know, Dorm is MIT's version of mailing lists that go out to everyone who lives in a dorm. So if anyone wants to bother everyone on MIT's campus, they can do so through Dorm Spam, which is what our mentor Matt did when he bothered everyone on MIT's campus about iGEM. I first heard about iGEM way before I applied to college. It was actually through Stanford iGEM. I'm not entirely sure how it got on my radar, but it just did, and I thought it was amazing to see these younger people, high schoolers, undergrads, and just recently graduated students pursue these big scientific questions and start answering them in the ways that they could.
Kind of in between, I guess, in terms of timeline, Allison and Jeannie's experiences. When I was researching colleges, I stumbled upon iGEM as a potential opportunity that I could get into at MIT. And obviously, as Jeannie was mentioning, a lot of other colleges have it as well. But I really liked seeing the past projects that MIT had done on iGEM. And I think that partially also motivated me to pick MIT, but also was how I was introduced to iGEM.
Great. So then, after you heard about iGEM, so Jeannie, you already mentioned about why iGEM was interesting to you. So I guess for the other two, how do you, what part of iGEM made you want to join MIT's team?
You want to go first?
Sure. I think for me, the idea of getting to do a whole project from start to finish was really appealing because I know that in a lot of Europe experiences, so the research opportunities program that we have here, you kind of are forced to focus on one part of a project and you're kind of given a lot of limitations by your mentor or PI, whereas in iGEM it's very much you have the freedom to do whatever you want with your team, and I thought that was a really great way to explore science in general and explore my interests.
Yeah, very similar to Katie. I thought it was a really amazing opportunity to be able to choose your own research project, and it's independent research, right? And what other time can you really do that?
Of course, if you have additional. I feel like I just missed the two. I didn't want to be like only other. Yeah.
Um, no, I'm good.
All right. So, as a mentor on the iGEM team, I have a couple like ideas that I want to like instill through iGEM. But before I say any of those, like, how has iGEM changed your perspective on science and engineering?
Um, oh, I think for me, like it got a lot more real because like kind of growing up, right? Like scientific research, whether it's like in the shows or just the bare minimum exposure I got, it seemed very like very mystical. But then after this experience, it's like one of those like real world experiences that you like step out into the world, and it gave me a much deeper insight into what like science and engineering was or is.
I definitely agree. I think in my college applications, I was very eager to write about how I wanted to gain wet lab experience or dry lab experience, and I used all of these terms without actually knowing what it looks like or what it meant. And starting iGEM and going through the entire iGEM process made me realize what exactly that meant, what exactly doing lab work meant, and how you needed to like plan out your entire project before just like jumping right into the lab. It's not always you following a protocol that was pre-written. It's like for iGEM, like Katie mentioned, it's like a completely um, team-led project and team design project. So we also got a lot of experience in that aspect of things, of the design, instead of just being like maybe just like a lab technician who is doing routine things in the lab.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Allison and Jeannie said. To add on, I think like because you go through and you learn like all the techniques and everything hands on and it becomes a lot more real, it also made me understand a bit more, I guess, how science works. And I don't want to say like the flaws of the process, but it becomes more apparent like
Mm-hmm.
where you can do certain things in experimentation and how like postering and deliverables work. Like there's not like I'm more cynical, but definitely made me stop just like automatically trusting everything that comes out of science, because there's definitely room to, you know, do do certain things.
Yeah, and in addition to that, because our project was bioengineering, it wasn't just straight biology, we also experienced the engineering cycle and how, like, what it means to design something, prototype it, and test it, and then run into errors that maybe you didn't see beforehand, and then go back to the drawing board. And I think that was really edifying to realize that things, it's very much like an iterative process. It's not just going to be like a one and done sort of situation.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm glad that that was your response because a big idea of like that I hoped the iGEM experience would be is that like you get to not only have an idea but you actually get to implement and you get to learn how to take something that's just abstract and turn it into like concrete. And I'm very proud of you guys as a mentor. I don't think I've ever said this, but to see you guys go from in the beginning like having this such high level but not able to like get into any details and then getting to those details, having a real circuit and plan, and then moving from just me telling you like, oh, this is the protocol, to like coming up with your own protocols, and then your ability to do more lab stuff than I can actually at this point. It's super exciting to see. So.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, so with iGEM 2023 wrapping up, what are some next steps for you guys? Anyone can start.
I mean, for me, I'm gonna be dedicating more time to a Europe that I've had going on since last spring, I think. So yeah, just
Tell us
working on that.
more.
It's, oh my God, okay. I'm working on nucleic acid nanoparticles, so specifically optimizing what's called DNA origami so that we can deliver mRNA in vaccinology and in therapeutic applications. And specifically, I'm trying to optimize the framework of the DNA so that mRNA can actually be loaded in and translated in the human body.
Do you have any next steps you want to share?
I will also be dedicating more time to a Europe that I started this fall. I don't actually know how much I can say about it because well, it's like a computational bio Europe, which
You don't need
we
to.
are.
If you don't,
Yeah. I mean,
it
it's
is
like
private
it's just
yet.
like RNA sequencing stuff. So
Exciting.
that is what I will be working on.
Okay. I need to think.
Yeah.
I'll be 1 second.
Perfect.
Okay, so as y'all have heard, doing Europs at MIT is a very popular thing that a lot of undergrads do, probably the majority. Right now, I don't have a Europ lined up, and I feel really okay about that because I'm honestly really excited.
It's always me.
It's always me.
We're gonna have some fun bloopers.
It's okay. Now you don't have to take a second. Now you can just.
Yeah, we just cut it. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I don't even know what I was saying. But yeah, so I guess personal goals wise, I mean, I am really excited to think more deeply about what sphere of research I want to continue pursuing. If you guys didn't already know, this year our project was on cancer cachexia, and it's very closely tied to oncology, and it really opened my eyes to research in oncology. And I think that there's a lot more that I personally want to think about in regards to that and like what I can see myself doing in the future. But besides the science and research part of things, I am really hoping to dedicate more time to becoming fluent in Spanish because that's really important to me, and also to thinking more about social change because I've kind of been putting that on hold since I got to MIT, and I think I'm feeling better about getting back into it.
So excited.
That's awesome answer. Great. And that leads nicely to the next question, which is one of the big ideas I think MIT also tries to instill in its students is the idea of thinking big. So what are some problems, and they can be both scientific and social, that you see or that you want to help address? And do you have a vision of maybe not even necessarily how you go about doing it, because that can be, having the plan as we just discussed this can be difficult, but what would the like the like the end result, the problem is solved, like what does that look like for you? What is that kind of vision?
Thank you for asking us a question to solve the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Solve all the world's problems. I can go first. So, like I mentioned, social change is really important to me, and if you're curious, at MIT, it's definitely not just a STEM school. There are such strong departments in all of the liberal arts departments. Whether you're looking for anything in like philosophy or psychology or like urban design and whatnot. And one of those opportunities includes a freshman pre-orientation program, which is called ACE, or Active Community Engagement. And so through ACE, which is something that I was a counselor for this past summer, we focused each day on a different social issue that was very prevalent in the Boston and Cambridge community. And these sorts of things are really personal to me, and I find a lot of personal exigence to focus on them. So, one thing that I have dedicated a lot of my life to is gun violence prevention, and it's a problem that I find myself getting frustrated towards time and time again. I'm not really sure how my education at MIT will inform me fully towards that issue, but I do think that like I think that the question that Matt posed is very big. It's like everyone wants to imagine a utopia or just like a world without whatever big problem they're focused on. And obviously that's like the ideal world in a world without gun violence, but it's a very difficult and nuanced problem in the United States, so I will leave it at that.
Do you want to go first? Or...
Sure. I think one thing that has interested me for a while that kind of combines a little bit of like my scientific interests with some like social and also like personal interests is an issue about how a lot of autoimmune disorders very predominantly affect women compared to men. So things like rheumatoid arthritis and systemic lupus, they sometimes affect up to like 80% of women as opposed to 20% men. And besides, obviously like social implications and the scientific interests, I think just like working towards discovering why exactly that's the case would be a really interesting place for me to take my research potentially in the future. And then for the social part, like, you know, I love women. I want us to be healthy. So, um,
Stand
no,
women.
like it's absurd that in general in science a lot of times women are marginalized and not taken as seriously. And so I think working towards like making sure that people understand that women's health is very serious as well is crucial. So, yeah.
For me, I think I'm really interested in like on the more scientific side, like preventative medicine and like diagnostics, and then tying that with the more humanities side, it's putting that in the context of low resource settings. So another major factor, or like for example, in my college apps, I talked a lot about how the HIV outbreak, pandemic, epidemic, one of those, in South Africa was one of the first things that actually sparked my interest in medicine in general. So, like, I'm still really interested in the issue of not MIT, HIV. Sorry. This is what 6 hours of peace setting in like one go does to you. But the topic of like HIV in or infectious diseases in these low resource settings, that is something that I'm really interested in. And I also am really interested in like preventative medicine and democratizing healthcare. So part of the reason why I switched to electrical engineering and computer science is that I want to make devices that can like offer affordable treatments or diagnostics. So like more people are able to like take control over like of their health and live healthily. Yes.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, it's great to hear that the kind of like diversity of problems or issues that uh, everyone only has a certain amount of attention span, so they can only focus on a certain amount of things. But it's exciting to hear that we have a team with diverse interests and hopefully the skills now to help make change. So that's good. So you're here at MIT, which is known for its research and its ability, like opportunities to get involved in research. But how would you suggest that someone in high school or even in college, but maybe not as you know where research is not as emphasized, how do you suggest they might get started doing research?
I can start actually. So I was very fortunate to be from the Bay Area where you have like UC Berkeley, UCSF, and Stanford right there. So in my case, I sent out like 30, 40 cold emails to professors in the vicinity. I think that is like a really great way if you have these resources to just kind of reach out, shoot your shot, and thank goodness somebody did take me eventually. But like even if you don't have like universities near you, I think there might be like a lot of remote opportunities, especially with the like after COVID, a lot of things are moving remotely. So I guess my advice would be don't be afraid to like send a cold email. So like reach out, like make a resume, ask a teacher for a letter of rec, email professors that you're very interested in, and see where it goes from there.
I think, yeah, I totally agree with that advice. I think it's um, like there are a lot of resources at your fingertips. I think one thing I would say is if you're in high school and you're stressing about doing research, if you feel that it's more of a pressure than a personal desire, I would suggest you not to stress, and that there are so many high schoolers who don't do research before they get into college, and it's literally the norm. It's not the the opposite is not the norm. For me, my high school was not very well equipped with that sort of opportunity. And I also finished high school in the peak of COVID, so a lot of my high school time was online. I would say outside of the academic year, during summers, is a really good time to look into research opportunities. There are so many colleges, including MIT, that holds um, really valuable research opportunities for students, and depending on what your background is, I'm 100% positive that there will be something that is accessible to you. There are programs that, for example, I'm only talking about MIT because I'm familiar most with MIT, but there are some examples, or there are some programs that MIT hosts that are completely free to the students, and everything from like housing and food is also bundled in the whole program. So if like that shouldn't be a concern if that's something that is holding you back from applying or researching, even like where can I start my research journey.
Yeah, I think one of the examples is like MIT Mites, and it's specifically like it's the purpose is to encourage people from like underrepresented backgrounds to get into scientific research, which I think is a great program and a great mission.
Yeah, I think similar to Allison, my personal experience in high school was cold emailing because I also had, I mean, I'm also from the Bay Area, so like Allison said, I had Stanford right next to me. But I did that one year, and then a year before, I did a program not affiliated with the university. So definitely just looking for programs or universities near you or remote opportunities. And I guess like it's not answering the question, but advice I would have is like don't get discouraged. I got very lucky, and one of my first cold emails, I got a positive response. But like my brother's going or went through that recently, and I think he sent out also like 30 or 40 and got primarily like no response at all. So just don't get discouraged. And if research is something you're really passionate about, then there will be some opportunity for you, and you will be able to pursue what you enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go
Wait,
for it.
I was gonna say like all it takes is like one yes, right?
Yeah.
You can go through like 50 no's, but then that one yes is all that really matters. Like a little bit more about like my experience in my sophomore fall, I emailed like 30, 40 professors, and then most of them ghosted me because I was like some random high schooler, which is you like it happens. But then one professor said yes, right? And then COVID happened, so I couldn't do it. And then my junior year, I also emailed another 30, 40 professors, most of which, because of COVID restrictions, said no or did not respond. And I emailed the professor that said yes the previous year. And I emailed him probably 3 or 4 times throughout the year. And in late May, which is when summer was about to start, he like emailed me saying like, "Thank you for being so persistent, and like I'm really happy to tell you that like I'm opening my lab and you can have like a spot in the lab to like do an internship." So shout out to Professor Green. You're amazing, and I had a great experience there. So it just keep trying, and like what happens, like whatever happens will happen, and like I think genuinely believe that like everything happens for the best.
I have one more quick thing to add.
Yeah.
You also don't need to do research under a pre-existing professor or lab. You can also just do independent research, even if it's just a literature review on a topic you're so incredibly excited about. Like, if the research is personal and it ends up just being for you, not even published or going anywhere, like it's still completely valuable and you can still write it as an experience. It doesn't need to necessarily be in like an alternative setting.
Yeah. Like do it for yourself, I think is the most important part. Yeah.
Great points. Okay, so other than research, do you have any advice that you would give your younger self in high school, young, not necessarily younger?
Like, always seek out new experiences and opportunities that are like legal. Um, um, like, I think it's like sometimes like at MIT there are like a lot of talks that always happen, right? And I think a big challenge here is like, oh, I have 5 P sets. Okay, I don't have 5 P sets. Like, oh, I have 3 P sets. And then I also have a talk. Even if you're like tired or busy, sometimes it is worth it to go try out and like see what happens if you go to like one of these talks or workshops, because I think like serendipitous events do happen, and you just have to like put yourself in positions where you can meet new people and like possibly meet like your next best friend, your next mentor, or something like that. Because that's how I got my Europe for this fall and also last fall. But yeah, so just like try to meet people, and if you're an introvert, it's okay. I'm also an introvert. Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
And just like any advice that
Oh,
you would
right.
give your younger self.
Um, Katie, feel free to go.
Okay, well, this is just like personally what I would tell myself. Like for me, high school was a very mediocre experience. Like the high school I went to, obviously I'm very grateful for like how I developed because of it and everything, but I think high school in general, it just feels like a very like transitional period where it's kind of like you're just stuck there for 4 years before you can go on and do things that you're really passionate about in college. And for me, I always felt throughout high school that I was like just waiting to just be done with it. So personally, I would just tell myself like it gets better, like you'll get to college at some point and just like um I think also high school is a very nice time where it's like you're worried about college apps, but nothing really matters. So definitely, I would say like be grateful for the fact that you can just like be a kid then in a way, you know? And yeah.
Mm. That's true. Yes, be a kid. Yeah. I guess I would say it's okay to be unsure about things moving forward. It's okay to not really know what's next in store for you. And I, um, I ended up taking a gap year between high school and college, and I did not regret it at all. So if you also feel like you feel a little unsure about your personal place in the world, it's always okay to take a gap year, take all the time you need to feel better about that, and then jump into whatever's next.
How about you, Matthew?
What is some advice I would give myself? It's a great question. Let me stop. No, I think maybe not for my high school self, but for your first few years of undergrad is so my advice to you, which I think you guys have already got, which is like just go for it. If you want to do something, it's you can. So yeah, one of the things I realized being here at MIT, everyone here is very talented, but they also work very hard. But even if you came in here without like, so there's people here that like come in with Olympiad experience or like crazy amounts of background knowledge. But even if you don't, but you want to do something, if you just dedicate yourself to it and just like do it, work on it every day, you really see that people can do whatever they want. They can achieve anything. And so that's what I would say. It's like don't be afraid. Even if the club rejects you or like the professor rejects you, you can always reach out again. You can always go to another similar lab, and then, or you can just do it yourself, like Jeannie said, and eventually you will be able to do whatever you wanted to do. Yeah. So on that note, I think we can conclude the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. It was really exciting to hear the advice that the iGEM team has and their perspectives on just not only iGEM but also life and the world. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.